What's up YouTube, it's the one and only legend of winning, aka Low, and I'm back with another video. Now, with another season behind us along with the postseason, what I decided to do was take the time out, look at some of the players that are in the NBA right now, evaluate their career, and see where they rank amongst all-time greats. And in today's video, we're going to be talking about Stephen Curry and what he's been able to accomplish so far in his career and compare that against other great point guards. Curry, as we all know, is a two-time MVP, the first unanimous MVP, has had 3 consecutive finals appearances, winning 2 of them. Now, unfortunately, he has not been a finals MVP. However, if you've been watching the finals over the last 3 years, you already know in 2015 and in 2017, Steph Curry's execution, especially on the offensive end, has been spectacular. Add on top of the fact that Curry has been added to the All-Star game 4 times in his career, along with 4 All-NBA selections as well, you have to look at Curry's career and step back for a second and start to realize that Curry is doing something that not too many players in NBA history have been able to accomplish, let alone point guards. Which is why I'm asking this question: is Curry a top 5 point guard in NBA history? Now, in my opinion, I think he is. This isn't to discredit any of the great point guards. However, when you look at the point guard list and look at who's on that top 10, almost every player in the top 5 has massive flaws in their game, and they have certain holes in their legacy that they were unable to fulfill. So it does leave you questioning how far Curry, along with a lot of other great point guards in today's NBA, how far can they push up this list, because it's pretty much wide open. We haven't really had an era of great point guards like we are having right now. But again, going back to specifically Curry, in his first 8 years in the NBA, has already scored over 13,000 points. When it comes to assists, he already has over 3,900 assists. He's already recorded over 1,000 steals, a pretty good handful of rebounds for a player his size and his position, along with the fact that we already know the 3-pointers that he has made are ridiculous. Over 1,900 3-pointers in the first 8 years of his career is astonishing. Now, let's specifically go to the rings and the MVPs. Curry, in league history, had been one of the very few players to win multiple MVPs, and actually there's less than 15 of them. Now, out of those players who won 2 or more MVPs, there are even fewer of them who have won multiple championships. And out of that list, there are only 2 of them who have won multiple MVPs along with multiple championships who are point guards, and that is Magic Johnson and Stephen Curry. So when I look at my list specifically, you have Magic Johnson, you have Oscar Robertson, Jerry West, Isaiah Thomas, and then Stephen Curry. Now, don't get me wrong, when it comes to Curry, I don't want to act like I'm just going to be gushing over how great of a player Curry is, because he definitely has some flaws, and that's part of the reason why he's number 5 and not higher. Curry, for one, is not that great of a defender, especially on ball, and at times he's actually a liability. Then when it comes to his inability to show up in 2016 in the NBA Finals, that definitely holds Curry back a lot. And also not having a Finals MVP compared to some of these other players such as Jerry West, Isaiah Thomas, and Magic Johnson. So that's another reason why I have him at 5 and not higher. However, outside of that, there's no real rhyme or reason not to consider Curry being a top 5 player. When I hear people make the argument that, oh, well, Curry is on a super team, and if you took off Draymond Green or Klay Thompson, then Curry would not have the same type of success that other players have had. Let's get something clear. That makes absolutely no sense. I've never understood that argument, because for whatever reason, it only applies to a handful of players. That's like me saying, well, what if you took off Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, James Worthy, Byron Scott, Michael Cooper, a whole bunch of players that Magic Johnson played with? Would he have the same type of success that he's had throughout his entire career? Obviously not. However, Magic Johnson, and really any great player who's had a phenomenal stretch of basketball, has played with other great teammates. Now, I know another thing that a lot of people criticize Curry with is Curry's had a quote-unquote easy path to the finals. And obviously in 2015, he matched up against the Cleveland Cavaliers that were injured and only had LeBron on their team and Dellavedova. Now, majority of that is true. However, you can make the very same legitimate argument for a lot of other players. People don't point out the fact that Isaiah Thomas had a pretty easy championship run in 1989. In the first round, he went up against the Boston Celtics without Larry Bird, who missed the entire series. In the second round, he went up against the Milwaukee Bucks, and Sidney Moncrief was hurt and was only playing 25 minutes a game. In the third round, they faced up against Chicago Bulls. Scottie Pippen was only in his second year of his career. and Isaiah Thomas didn't really perform that well, especially when it comes to shooting from the field. And then when they got into the finals, they matched up with the Los Angeles Lakers. Byron Scott, who at the time was a 20-point scorer in the regular season and in the postseason, missed the entire series due to an injury. And in game 2, Magic Johnson pulled a hamstring and was completely hampered for the remainder of the series. So yeah. Now, with all that being said, I know a lot of people are going to point out, where is John Stockton? And quite honestly, I don't really think John Stockton is a top 5 point guard anymore. Now, before, obviously, with the numbers that he's posted, especially when it comes to assists and steals, the longevity, the ability to consistently be a playoff team, especially being that 1-2 punch with Karl Malone in the 90s, that definitely was enough to solidify him being a top 5 point guard in NBA history. However, at this point, looking at what Curry has achieved, looking at what he's been able to do, I don't understand how people could even come close to believing that John Stockton is better than Curry and has had a better career than Curry has had so far in his short time in the league. John Stockton was never an MVP. Matter of fact, there was many years where he wasn't even close to being a candidate to be an MVP. John Stockton doesn't have any championship rings. And if he won a championship, similar to Curry, he would not have won Finals MVP either. Now, this is not to discredit John Stockton, because he has multiple performances in the regular season and the postseason that definitely solidified his legacy. However, what exactly are you saying about Curry that you're not going to say about John Stockton? Are you going to sit there and penalize Curry for playing on a great team? And if you take Draymond off the team, then Curry will just be a regular player? Well, you can say the same thing about John Stockton. If you took Karl Malone off the Utah Jazz, how productive would John Stockton really be? Are you going to sit here and say that, oh, well, in the postseason, Steph Curry has underperformed? However, if we're going to talk about someone underperforming in the finals, go look at John Stockton in 1998. In this series, John Stockton had some of the worst outings of his career, specifically in Game 3 when John Stockton was part of the biggest blowout in finals history when he only posted 2 points and shot 25% from the field. Now, you may be sitting here saying, well, we got to give John Stockton a pass because John Stockton was a bit older at that time. He was dealing with back injuries, so we're going to give him a pass. However, that doesn't excuse him for what happened in 1996. John Stockton in that series averaged less than 10 points, 3 rebounds, 7 to 8 assists, nearly 2 steals. However, he shot under 40%. Now, you may be saying again, John Stockton was older, and Gary Payton is one of the greatest on-ball defenders that has ever played in NBA history. And especially back then when hand checking, Gary Payton really was able to control what was going on the court on the defensive end. Okay, fine. We'll give John Stockton that break as well. However, what happened in 1992 when he matched up against the Portland Trail Blazers? John Stockton, 14 points, 11 assists, 2 rebounds, and a steal. However, yet again, he shot under 40% from the field. And for the people out there who say that, oh, back then it was extremely hard to shoot over 40% or 45% because his hand checking and defense was much more physical than it was today, you are correct. It was harder, but it wasn't impossible. See, Terry Porter in that same series dropped 26 points, 8 assists, 4 rebounds, shot nearly 55% from the field and 53% from behind the arc. And just in case you are wondering, yes, Terry Porter was making 3 3-pointers a game, had one of the greatest performances in his career against John Stockton. So what is the excuse for that? And again, I'm not trying to point out the bad out of John Stockton. John Stockton has multiple moments in his career where he has performed extremely well. Buzzer beaters, game winners. He is definitely justified of having a Hall of Fame career, built a legacy, and definitely left an impact in the game. However, John Stockton has multiple performances, as you clearly see, where he underperformed. And I'm not even pointing out everything. So what exactly is the excuse for John Stockton? I just don't get it. And for people out there who keep pointing out that John Stockton, he's not a scorer, so you can't hold him to that type of responsibility, people, please spare me. Because in 1989, John Stockton had a phenomenal series. He dropped 27 points, 14 assists, 3 rebounds, and shot 50% from the field. John Stockton has multiple moments in his postseason career where he has had phenomenal scoring outings. So again, when it comes to John Stockton, I just don't understand the reason behind it. I understand he has the assists, the steals, I get the numbers, and I get the impact that he's left on the game. However, if it does not translate to wins, when Curry's numbers has translated to wins, by that standard, in my opinion, Curry is better. And that's the reason why I put Curry over Stockton. And right before I say that, and before I end this video, for the people out there who say that Curry isn't a quote-unquote true point guard, so I don't know how to rank him against other true point guards, that doesn't really make any sense to me. If I ask you who's the greatest small forward, you would easily say LeBron James. But you don't sit there and ask, well, I need to know, are we talking about true small forwards, or are we talking about ball handling small forwards? Because I got to figure out where I'm going to rank Scottie Pippen and LeBron at. You don't say that. So I don't want to hear no mess about Curry ain't no true point guard, because that's only something, for whatever reason, that Curry and other point guards get that label of. But with all that being said, people, I'll leave you on that note.